48 hours of darkness before harvest is bad, and today you'll find out why. Hi, I'm Chad Westport. I've been involved with cannabis for over 30 years. I'm a graduate of SVC and WSU, where I studied sustainable agriculture and small farm systems. Commercially, I've worked at the largest indoor facility in our state, and I've consulted with our legislatures on the medicinal cannabis program. My background and training give me the experience to easily guide new growers through the home cannabis growing process. It's easier than you think and far more rewarding than unloved, mass-produced, chemically treated commercial cannabis. Enter the woo. Westport University. You hear a lot of growers talk about giving their plants 48 hours of darkness before harvest. But why is that? The most common answer I get from growers is that they're giving their plants 48 hours of darkness to preserve terpenes. They don't want the hot lights on, burning off all of their terpenes in the final few days. Now, my argument to that has always been, if you're only concerned about terpene preservation in the last 2 days, you don't fully understand how this works. And, I've also heard the argument that you'll save money by not having the lights on. But let's be real. For a home grower, we're talking about saving maybe $5. I've tried this both ways, and I've even played with the length of time that the plants were given in darkness before harvest. And here is why I've come to be against the practice of 48 hours of darkness before harvest. Mainly, I live in a humid climate. Now, let's think about this. When is your tent the coldest and when is humidity the highest? Well, typically that's when your lights are off. And when are your buds at their largest, wettest, and most vulnerable to mold? Well, that's right at the end. So by leaving your plant in 48 hours of darkness before harvest, you could be setting the stage for unnecessary problems, and that is why I don't like to do it. Now, concerning 48 hours of darkness before harvest, those are the popular opinions. Those are the common arguments. And, well, I was comfortable accepting those reasons. The logic played out for me. And then, well, new shit has come to light, man. It all started about 2 years ago with something Jeremy Plum said on the Future Cannabis Project, which was hosted by my buddy Damon, aka Industry Sellout.
Val Potheads. Awesome username. Love it. Wants to know what your stance is on 24-hour darkness before harvest.
I'm going to bring my full bias on display here. I'm totally opposed.
What?
If you look with a microscope at trichomes and really observe their behavior, you'll find that, for example, in 24 hours of darkness, you've transformed the relationship to transpiration. Transpiration is connected to turgor and the internal pressure that is through the phloem and xylem of the irrigated components in the plant. You can watch trichomes do this sagging behavior when transpiration rates change. I am, again, trying to focus on maximum phytochemical inventory in any of the harvesting methods that I use. And a long, long time ago, did a lot of my own observational trials and absolutely do not like darkness.
But wait, there's more! Now, as you may be able to tell, Jeremy is a pretty intelligent dude. Lots of big words there. But before I break this all down, I want to share a little background on Jeremy Plum with you. Now, he's a pretty groovy dude, but he has worked for True Terpenes, which is a company that leads the industry and pretty much the world in cannabis terpene research and product development. He's also worked alongside pioneering names like this name that you should know, Dr. Ethan Russo. He's consulted for Israeli medical cannabis researchers, which Israel is one of only a few countries that actually do human clinical trials with cannabis. Now, he's also a peer-reviewed and published research author. Again, smart dude. But Jeremy is multi-talented, and he's worked in the lab, and he has also worked in the field. In fact, this footage behind me right now is a video that he took of a research and development field that he has access to. And this is only part of it. And in case you're wondering, this massive field of cannabis is tucked away in a secret location on the east side of my home state. And as you can see, this thing, it just keeps going. And this video goes on for about another 2 minutes. So as you can see, the guy's had access to a little bit of cannabis. Now, at first, I was trying to find research that supported the transpiration rate and trichome formation quandary, but I came up empty-handed. So I reached out to Damon, and there was one study that he pointed me to, but it wasn't super clear. So next, I have been trying to get a moment of time from Jeremy, who is a very, very, very busy person, and a person who doesn't even know me. So what I wanted to get from him is I wanted the deeper answer. I wanted the science. I wanted to know the mechanisms for why this is. And then, good fortunes for me, Damon had him back on the Future Cannabis Project channel recently. And well, shoot, this happened.
My homie Chad Westport has been dying to get your answer from this. 48 hours of darkness before harvest affecting the trichome heads.
I have a perspective. Jesse, do you want to go first? Or can I?
I mean, I guess I've never done any. I don't have any control to be able to say one way or the other. But
I've had lots of control. And here's one thing that I know.
Y'all ready for this?
Typically, I've run into this issue in California, as True Terpenes has been working towards all these hemp-derived components. We're experiencing high temperatures and very low vapor pressure deficit in maturity. And as the plant is approaching senescence, unfortunately, I see mass volatilization and losing a lot of character quickly. There's a very small harvest window where you have a chance to still preserve a lot of those volatiles. And I just want to call it that dynamic because I think a lot of people don't realize how much of the soul of the product you're losing in that last moment if there's very high temperatures.
Okay, so he is supporting the original thought that hot lights right above the canopy will lead to terpene loss. But I'll add that this is true whether it is day 30 of flower or the final 2 days of flower.
Aroma matters, have to protect it. It's a struggle. But back to the darkness question, to me, there's a light diet that has to do with intensity, not spectrum. And as you're in senescence, there's a ramping down of intensity that will decrease volatilization.
Okay, so again, he's saying don't run the lights at full strength. Lowering the intensity will reduce the heat, and this action can reduce the volatilization of terpenes.
But if you turn off the light and you go into 48 hours of darkness, you now have an array of hormonal things occurring in the plant that I would argue are not favorable. And I know there's this old school perspective of even cut the plant, let it be in the dark for a lot of time, it gets more potent and all these things. I'd argue really what you want is your net photosynthetic activity to continue until the point of harvest with all this secondary metabolism and subtle enzymatic refinement of aroma components happening right till the end. But you want that to happen in a way that reduces radiant heat, which is going to diminish and volatilize the aromatic inventory and the intensity overall. This last stage is something you really have to obsess on.
And here comes the science.
I'm thinking of photoperiodism and all the specialized cells that are related to receiving light. And so in the chloroplast, we have these pigments that are picking up the near red and the far red and are creating a signaling system that is like a nervous system to govern the generative growth activities. And that it's called a PRPFR curve. So how much far red light versus near red light is accumulated in those chloroplast cells is essentially what's determining generative versus vegetative growth. And even for 48 hours, think about re-veg. We're telling the plant to go back towards vegetative tissue. 48 hours probably isn't going to make, it's not much time in a plant's perspective, so it's not going to make a massive difference, but it's definitely a signal going in the wrong direction. I don't want I want to continue to tell the plant, go towards generative growth. The plant is speaking in light and chemicals and hormones. And so I think the PRPFR curve is going to go the wrong direction at a period where we just want the plant to be focusing on the refinement of the secondary metabolism.
What Jeremy is saying here is that in total darkness, there are hormonal changes within the plant and physical changes of the trichomes that are not favorable. So think about another time in the growth cycle where darkness affects the plants in a significant way. It's usually when you flip to flower. And when you flip to flower, you're changing the amount of darkness that the plant receives. As we all know, this causes a major hormonal change within the plant, and that causes it to exit the vegetative stage. So we're trying to find the best methods for the best harvests. And here is what Jeremy recommends.
It depends. One thing I'll say is we see huge diversity. And like I was thinking of dog walker. First times I was able to grow like some really good OGs and dog walkers. One thing that we saw was we got way louder nose and way better output if we had less light intensity. Many other varieties, we had far greater potency with higher light intensity. But to be specific, let's talk a few targets. I think if I was at a facility that had the ability to have 1,000 ppft for peak maturing, I'd want by the last 2 weeks, initially that first, 2 weeks before harvest, a reduction by 10%. Another week before harvest, another reduction by 10%. So a staggered drop like that is where roughly as like a cookie cutter approach, I'd recommend, but I want the temperature to go down a little bit and the humidity to go down a little bit in tandem. And typically you have like a 1.2 at peak generative growth, and maybe you're getting closer to like a 0.8.
This is the general concept, okay? Reduce the light intensity towards harvest and keep an eye on humidity. So does Jeremy recommend 48 hours of darkness before harvest?
That's hormonally the wrong direction, phytochemically the wrong direction, in my opinion. Yeah, keep the plant going in the same direction. Don't make a radical change right at the end when wonderful things are happening. I think that's the simplest.
Reduce intensity for the last.
Yeah, reduce intensity, avoid volatilization.
Now, I could have just regurgitated that information and not shown the video and made myself look all smart and stuff, but yo, I wanted you to hear this in technical terms from a very high-level cannabis researcher. It's one thing about the internet is people don't go to the right folks, so believe Jeremy, not me. And has it changed my opinion? No, it's actually reinforced my opinion that 48 hours of dark before harvest can be bad, but for different reasons than I had originally thought. There should be 3 key takeaways from this video. Number 1, it is better to reduce your light intensity and therefore the heat generated from the light in the final 10 to 14 days before harvest in order to minimize terpene loss. And number 2, the plant isn't done metabolizing and creating secondary metabolites 48 hours before harvest. Give your plants the resources they need in order to bring out the maximum expression and its finest potential. You know, playing with its hormones is like playing with big worms' emotions. And number 3, darkness and in turn transpiration, they affect the structure of the trichome head. The trichome heads, those contain all of our cannabinoids and terpenes. So think of the trichome heads as our gold. Quit playing with its process by giving it 48 hours of darkness before harvest. How has your attitude changed now that new stuff has come to light? Find my gear and merch on chadwestport.com and keep it locked here on the Chad Westport YouTube channel for more Westport University videos. But in case you wanted to hear that all one more time in slightly different words,
I do not want to deprive the plants of a single mineral, of a photon, or of a component that is still working in those final hours in refinement of phytochemistry. People just don't have a basic understanding about how plants work. And really, there again are sufficiency requirements for minerals. If you deprive a plant of a particular mineral, especially say a small, tiny fraction of a trace mineral at that last stage of development, you're depriving biosynthase of a critical component to continue the refinement. Now the plant is having to make evasive maneuvers and use resources in a way that has removed the focus from the one thing that matters in that last 24 hours, which is, or in the last 10 days in the case of flushing, or whatever amount of time. It's all about the refinement of the phytochemistry and the glandular trichome. That's it.
Remember to party on.